Hello, tributes, and welcome back to another episode on the channel. This is the first episode of the Euromerican games, where we will be reading the 1st through the 3rd Euromerican games. Now, this is based off of a series. I forget who wrote it, but it's called the Europa games. Uh, written. It's basically like the member states of the European Union and the associate states of the European Union go into the Hunger Games. It's fun, although there's only 2 episodes of it out, and that's all that ever came of it. And so it got to like the 6th Europa Games and hasn't come out with anything since. I really hope he gets back to that, but heaven only knows if he will. But that's okay. Again, this is also based off of Tales of the Hunger Games by Christian Blanco and Panem Reborn by Lauren McCouch, even though it is not in the same universe. I want to make that very clear as well. This does not take place in that same universe as those, but there's still like, they're sort of kind of inspiration for this series, because if they didn't exist, I wouldn't even be writing. I wouldn't even have a writing channel. They still are a little bit, they still are a tiny bit, you know at fault for this. Not at fault, but it's just just a tiny bit responsible for me writing this series. So yeah, those are the series that I need to thank for this. I hope by the next episode I can figure out again who was writing the Europa games, just so I can thank them actually, actually factually thank them. I'll link it in the description. I'll try to find it and link it in the description so you guys know what I'm talking about. I am not able to thank the person who actually originally wrote it yet, because I don't remember their channel name right now, but I will put their links in the description. I will find them before I upload this video, and I will put their channel link and the links to the 2 videos that exist, the Europa games. I will link those in the description. But anyways, this is the Euro-American games, European Union, and newly formed American Union. Things happen. Russia becomes big and scary, and countries do things that, and the other countries of the world do things that you would not normally expect. Some crazy things will happen later on down the line in the series. But anyways, I do want to give a fair warning. This video, and other videos like it, because this is the Hunger Games, they reference depictions of death and killing. So, if that's something you don't want to hear, don't watch this video. Don't watch Hunger Games fanfictions in general if you don't want to hear about death. Because, I'm sorry, if you don't want to hear about death, you're watching the wrong series to do that. I'm just saying. But anyways, and then also, this video specifically does have some profanity used in it, or not actually, it's bleeped out in the writing, and I will be just basically skipping over that word, but and it's only one word that's bleeped out that I will be skipping over in the duration of the video, but the next slide pretty much describes what word that was used. So, yeah, there is that. So, there is that. And also, during the 2nd Euro-American Games, which is also the same point that profanity is used. Just a different slide. There's also a reference to rape. So if you don't want to hear that, don't watch this video. Well, actually, just like you can watch the first Euro-American games, then kind of skip over the second, and just the victor will be revealed at the end of the video, like it always is. But anyways, yeah, that's everything I wanted to say before the video. So let's get into it. The first Euro-American games occurred during a very scary time during the year 3001. The European Union made a deal with the American Union in order to get certain military guarantees and assistance against the rising Russian superpower. This deal would involve all member states, associate member states, candidate member states, and potential candidate member states sending one tribute into a deadly battle, mostly to determine who the strongest youths in each state would be, in order to build a military presence in both America and Europe to fight the Russian power. The Euro-American Games would contain one tribute in the age range of 12 to 30 from Iceland, EU associate, Ireland, EU member, Scotland, EU candidate, Portugal, EU member, Spain, EU member, France, EU member, Netherlands, EU member, Belgium, EU member, Luxembourg, EU member, Germany, EU member, Italy, EU member, Malta, EU member, Liechtenstein, EU associate, Slovenia, EU member, Croatia, EU member, Austria, EU member, Hungary, EU member, Czechia, EU member, Slovakia, EU member, Poland, EU member, Lithuania, EU member, Latvia, EU member, Estonia, EU member, Finland, EU member, Sweden, EU member, Norway, EU associate, Denmark, EU member, Romania, EU member, Bulgaria, EU member, Greece, EU member, Cyprus, EU member, Georgia, EU candidate, Turkey, EU candidate, North Macedonia, EU candidate, Albania, EU candidate, Kosovo, EU candidate, Montenegro, EU candidate, Serbia, EU candidate, Bosnia and Herzegovina, EU candidate, Moldova, EU candidate, Ukraine, EU candidate, Canada, AU member, the United States of America, AU member, and Mexico, AU member. This year's victor would be Eliška Adamczyk, age 29, from Czechia. Tributes were chosen for the game by randomly drawing from each state's population of 12 to 30-year-olds. All residents in this age bracket and their families were required to gather in their town center or city center in anticipation for the reaped contestant. Since nothing had ever been attempted like this before in either Europe or America, some difficulties occurred. Isabella, 23, from Mexico, and Maximilian, 14, from Canada, didn't show up to either of the reapings when their names were picked. Peacekeepers were dispatched to find each of the two tributes, eventually finding both nearby to where the reapings were held in their respective countries. Isabella was found nearby to a river, looking over the racing rapids. The peacekeepers grabbed her and forced her back to the reaping area where she'd be announced as the tribute from Mexico. Meanwhile, Maximilian was found in a bus depot in Toronto, hiding from the peacekeepers. The peacekeepers would also grab him and take him back to Ottawa to be announced as the tribute for Canada. Chloe, 20, from the USA, was the only tribute from the American states to not freak out when she was reaped, seeing this as an opportunity to show her strength and her ability to join the military they were forming to fight Russia. Meanwhile, in Europe, it was decided by the two unions that each year one of the associate members of the EU would be picked to compete, and only one. This year, Liechtenstein was picked to participate in the Games along with the American Union and European Union member states and candidate states. When Niall from Ireland and Freya from Scotland were reaped, they would officially become the youngest tributes this year, being both 12. When their names were picked in their respective countries, they both had intense physical reactions to it, both of them being terrified to die in the games, knowing they wouldn't make it far. Once all the tributes were reaped, they were transported to Brussels, the capital of the European Union. Tributes would then be split into two different bedrooms in a brothel within the city. Each room was filled with enough bunk beds to hold each of the tributes. The tributes would be split by gender, the girls going into one room and the boys going into another. In the girls' room, Chloe and Isabella became close friends, agreeing to bunk with each other. Chloe taking the top bunk and Isabella taking the bottom bunk, as Isabella was afraid of heights. As the girls introduced themselves to other girls in the room, Lucia, 19, from Spain, and Leonor, 15, from Portugal, became good friends with the pair, especially after Isabella and Chloe stated that they planned on getting Maximilian into the alliance. This would cause Lucia to state that she wanted to invite Andre, 18, from France, into the alliance, originally planning to form an Iberian alliance with him. Meanwhile, in the boys' room, Maximilian became good friends with his bunkmate Hugo, 22, from Estonia, along with Hugo's friends Benas, 21, from Lithuania, and Marks, 17, from Latvia. He tried to talk to Andre as well, but things didn't go according to plan when Arthur, 26, from Belgium, interrupted their conversation in order to talk about forming a possible Franco-German alliance with him, and the female tributes from the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Germany. During training, Isabella, Chloe, Lucia, and Leonor immediately found Maximilian, although Andre wasn't nearby. Instead, Maximilian was seen with Hugo, Benas, and Marks. Although the girls were worried about including the Baltic tributes, Maximilian had already built a strong bond with the boys and threatened that he wouldn't join the American alliance if they wouldn't let Hugo, Benas, and Marks join as well. Eventually, the American group saw Andre with Arthur, Karina, 24, from Germany, Sophia, 15, from Luxembourg, and Joanna, 17, from the Netherlands. Isabella, Chloe, and Maximilian immediately saw Andre as a traitor, while Hugo, Benas, Marks, Lucia, and Leonor correctly stated that they had never actually talked to Andre, and therefore Andre never actually agreed to join their alliance. As training continued, the American group actually ended up also talking to Niall and Freya, agreeing to protect the pair as long as the pair helped the group with certain things that only younger, more youthful people could do. After the day of training, the tributes returned to their rooms. When Maximilian, Hugo, Benas, Marks, and Niall got back to the boys' room, they hung out around Maximilian and Hugo's bunk bed. The group talked for a while, getting to know each other. As the boys of the American alliance talked, they overheard Arthur and Andre talking about Karina and Joanna. Arthur would claim that Karina was very pretty, while Andre would say the same about Joanna. At first, the American Alliance boys just thought Andre and Arthur were talking about their group, but that soon changed when Andre commented that he thought Lucia and Leonore were the ugliest tributes reaped this year, making Arthur laugh at the pair of girls. This made the American Alliance boys angry. Maximilian got the most angry out of the boys, as he had developed a crush on Leonore. Maximilian started to storm over to Arthur and Andre, being grabbed and stopped by Benas and Marx. The pair told Maximilian to save that anger for the arena, to which Maximilian glared at Andre and Arthur for a moment before turning back towards the other American Alliance members, continuing their conversation. In the girls' room, Isabella, Chloe, Lucia, Leonore, and Freya stayed next to Leonore and Alishka's, 29, from Czechia's, bunk bed. As the girls talked, they didn't know Alishka could hear them. Eventually, Alishka called out from her top bunk that the girls couldn't whisper very well, followed by a giggle. Alishka then peeks her head out from her bunk and waves down at Leonore. Alishka would state that she was glad Leonore was making friends, although she'd go on to say that she's trying to sleep and that she'd appreciate it if the girls were a little quieter. The American Alliance girls would nod respectfully before Alishka's head retreated back into her bunk, going back to attempting to fall asleep. Meanwhile, Victoria, 20, from Slovakia, raised her voice at the American Alliance girls from her bunk across the room, yelling at the girls to shut up and that she was trying to sleep as well. Isabella, Freya, and Chloe would just flip Victoria off, while the other girls apologized to Victoria, causing Isabella, Freya, and Chloe to roll their eyes at Lucia and Leonore. After this, the girls would all agree to go to bed and start talking again in the morning. The next morning, in the girls' room, Alishka immediately walked over to Victoria and forced her to apologize to the girls in the American Alliance. Victoria would start arguing with Alishka, stating she didn't have anything to apologize for. Meanwhile, Alishka and Victoria's two other allies in the room, Amina, 20, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Julia, 24, from Slovenia, watched on in slight fear as Alishka and Victoria argue. Lucia and Leonore tried to interject that Victoria really didn't have to apologize, while Isabella, Chloe, and Freya wanted to hear Victoria crack and apologize. As the argument progressed, tributes from the boys' room, including the other members of the Austria-Hungarian Alliance, Jacob, 16, from Austria, Joseph, 19, from Croatia, and Attila, 18, from Hungary, along with the American Alliance boys, came into the room to watch the fight occur. During the fight between Alishka and Victoria, Maximilian told Lucia and Leonore about what the Franco-German alliance said about them. So, when Arthur and Andre came into the room to watch the argument, Lucia and Leonore lunged at them. Before they could get very far, though, Maximilian stopped them, stating what Benas and Marx had stated, that they should save their anger for the arena. As the argument finally died down, Alishka infamously kicked Victoria out of the alliance, forcing her to go solo. The other members of the Austria-Hungarian alliance seemed to agree with this decision. Everybody agreed that Victoria was annoying. Alishka would then turn to the American alliance and state that they had the Austria-Hungarian alliance's protection in the arena, which made the members of the American alliance smile and nod thankfully at the Czech girl. After the argument calmed down, peacekeepers came into the bedrooms and grabbed the tributes, splitting the 42 different tributes into 5 different hovercrafts. In hovercraft 1, Alishka, Benas, Chloe, and Maximilian were put together with a few other tributes. As the hovercraft doors closed, peacekeepers began putting trackers into the tributes' arms. After receiving their trackers, Chloe, Benas, and Maximilian began talking, while Alishka glared menacingly at Luca, 17, from Serbia. In Hovercraft 2, Victoria, Freya, Niall, Isabella, Hugo, and Arthur are in the hovercraft with one other tribute. The tension was intense in this hovercraft, with the American Alliance members glaring at Arthur, while Victoria glared at the American Alliance members. Other tributes were split amongst the 3 other hovercrafts, but the events in these hovercrafts were deleted from the archives of the Euromerican games. But when these hovercrafts touched down, the Polish, Romanian, and North Macedonian tributes were dead, blood on the Italian and Kosovo tributes' hands, causing peacekeepers to assume that Ejan, 19, from Kosovo, and Alessia, 18, from Italy, killed Antony, 14, from Poland, Relia, 17, from Romania, and David, 18, from North Macedonia. This would cause the peacekeepers to shoot Ejan and Alessia dead before the games. The peacekeepers would then blindfold all of the tributes before taking them to the arena. In the arena, 4 alliances ruled these games, one of which was very unexpected. These alliances include the American, Austria-Hungarian, and Franco-German alliances, as well as a very unexpected alliance between Eleni, 20, from Cyprus, Athena, 25, from Greece, and Demir, 21, from Turkey, calling themselves the Greco-Turk Alliance. When the tributes arrived in the arena, an announcement was made that they could take their blindfolds off once the timer reached 0. Just then, a countdown from 60 started. As the countdown continued, some tributes finally realized the terror of the situation and began bursting into tears. Even Chloe looked terrified after witnessing Ejan and Alessia being shot dead. Once the countdown reached 0, something snapped within most tributes. As all the tributes ripped their blindfolds off, the Greco-Turkish alliance had already taken their blindfolds off. They made it to the center of the cornucopia within seconds, as the other tributes looked around the arena, which seemed to be an old amphitheater. As Eleni grabbed a knife, Athena grabbed a sword and a throwing knife, and Demir grabbed a bow and arrow, they would become the first armed tributes in the games, as the other tributes were still distracted by the views around them. As the Greco-Turkish alliance armed themselves, they started running at the weakest-looking tributes. Eleni tackled Demeter, 13, from Bulgaria, to the ground and stabbed him in the heart multiple times, making Demeter the first kill of the games within the arena. Meanwhile, Athena threw her knife at Luca's temple. As Luca fell to the ground, Athena pinned him down and stabbed him with her sword multiple times, making him the second official kill of the games. Finally, Demir ran at Valentina, 14, from Malta, and shot an arrow into her stomach. Valentina let out a scream, alerting her ally from Liechtenstein, Emilia, age 19. As Demeter straddled Valentina and stabbed her in the heart repeatedly with an arrow, Emilia ran to the center and grabbed a scythe. Emilia then ran at Demir with her scythe, tackling him to the ground and overpowering him in a matter of seconds, stabbing him in the skull with her scythe. Just then, Emilia got stabbed in the back by Eleni, killing her. As the Greco-Turkish and Italian alliance rampage and the bloodbath ended, The other tributes finally snapped out of their trances, either fleeing from the cornucopia or running directly into the center of the cornucopia. Jacob, Amina, Joseph, Elishka, Attila, and Julia ran into the cornucopia with Maximilian, Hugo, Niall, Marx, Benas, Isabella, Leonore, Freya, Lucia, and Chloe in order to protect the American group like they promised. As the American group started to arm themselves, the Austria-Hungarian group engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the Greco-Turkish alliance members. Julia, Attila, and Joseph attacked Athena, while Jacob, Amina, and Alishka attacked Eleni. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to everyone in the cornucopia, the Franco-German alliance was approaching the cornucopia as well. As Andre made it to the cornucopia, he pounced at the last remaining sword in the cornucopia, while Maximilian also pounced at the sword. The boys fought each other for the sword, both boys delivering devastating blows to each other until Maximilian got Andre in a headlock, snapping Andre's neck and grabbing the sword off of the floor, running to protect Leonore. Meanwhile, Arthur grabbed a throwing knife and immediately threw it into Hugo's back, causing him to scream out in pain and fall to the ground. Arthur would laugh at this as he walked over to Hugo, an insane smile on his face. He then straddled Hugo's hips and stabbed and grabbed his head, bashing his head against the concrete floor repeatedly until his cannon sounded. Meanwhile, Athena managed to kill Attila and Julia before being killed by Joseph. After killing Athena, Joseph knelt down next to the bodies of Attila and Julia, closing their eyes with his hands, sighing and standing up. As he stands up, he gets hit in the head by a throwing knife thrown by Karina. As Joseph's body fell to the floor, the last thing his eyes saw was Alishka killing Eleni, a smile growing on his face as he realizes the plan to protect the American group was going well. After the Greco-Turkish group was killed and the American group was armed, the American and Austria-Hungarian alliances ran away from the cornucopia together. As they ran, 17 cannons sounded in the distance, marking the end of the bloodbath. As the 17 cannons sounded, Alishka, Jacob, Amina, Maximilian, Niall, Marx, Benas, Isabella, Leonore, Freya, Lucia, and Chloe cried over the loss of their friends Joseph, Attila, Julia, and Hugo. Alishka, Jacob, Amina, Maximilian, Marx, and Benas took the deaths of their friends the worst out of the whole group, Maximilian even walling himself off from everyone else. Meanwhile, the Franco-German alliance didn't mourn the loss of their French ally, Andre. Instead, the group stayed at the cornucopia for the rest of the day, killing anyone that got too close. This included the boys from Albania, Finland, Moldova, Sweden, and Ukraine, and the girls from Denmark, Georgia, and Montenegro. This would leave just 17 tributes after the first hour of the games, all of which were split amongst the three alliances. At this point, the Austria-Hungarian alliance and the American alliance agreed to stick together until the very end in order to have a better chance at taking down the Franco-German alliance, with the notable exception of Alishka, who had secretly been planning to turn on the Austria-Hungarian alliance and American alliances with the hope of Leonore and Maximilian. During the second hour of the games, Maximilian, Leonore, and Alishka struck first. As Jacob was on watch, the trio pretended to sleep. Once everyone else was fully asleep, Alishka snuck up behind Jacob, snapping his neck and smirking back at Maximilian and Leonore. As Alishka did this, Maximilian and Leonore systematically killed each other's allies in their sleep. As the trio made their way to Chloe, however, Chloe woke up. As Chloe noticed the trio approaching her, she looked around at all her dead allies and uttered her last words to her former allies, calling them traitors and that no military would ever trust them. After she said these words, however, Maximilian stabbed Chloe in the neck, sounding her cannon. This killing spree left the final 8 tributes: Arthur from Belarus, Maximilian from Canada, Eliška from Czechia, Karina from Germany, Sophia from Luxembourg, Joanna from the Netherlands, Leonore from Portugal, and Victoria from Slovakia. As the 3rd hour of the games approached, another cannon sounded. This cannon would be revealed to belong to Victoria after she had died due to hunger. She had made it surprisingly far after being kicked out of the Austria-Hungarian alliance, but without the food Eliška had gathered from the cornucopia, Victoria didn't make it much further than the 3-hour mark. After this death, the surviving tributes were all instructed to meet up at the center of the arena. Before leaving their camp, Maximilian, Eliška, and Leonore grabbed weapons off the bodies of their dead allies. Maximilian grabbing a knife, Eliška grabbing a sword and a throwing knife, and Leonore grabbing a set of throwing knives. The trio then made their way to the center of the arena. At the center, Arthur, Karina, Sophia, and Joanna glared at the trio of Austria-Hungarian and American alliance tributes. Sophia commented that it was only a matter of time before the bigger alliance turned on each other, and that she was glad that Maximilian, Eliška, and Leonore were the ones to come out of it. Karina would then add that Maximilian and Leonore would be especially easy targets for them to take down. Meanwhile, Arthur and Joanna wouldn't add to the tirade against the trio, the duo not liking the looks they were getting from Maximilian, Eliška, and Leonore. Just then, Leonore would throw a knife into Sophia's heart, sounding her cannon. This would cause both trios to break into action. Karina would throw a spear into Leonore's head, sounding her cannon, getting immediate revenge for her killing Sophia. Just then, Eliška swung her sword through the air, stabbing Karina in the side, followed immediately by Maximilian throwing a knife into Joanna's head. Both Karina and Joanna's cannons sounded simultaneously. This left the top 3: Arthur from Belgium, Maximilian from Canada, and Eliška from Czechia. As the trio looked between each other, Eliška proved her title as a traitor, turning to Maximilian and stabbing him in the heart with her sword, sounding his cannon almost immediately, leaving just her and Arthur to vie for the crown. Arthur raises an eyebrow as he sees this, genuinely surprised that Eliška had done that. Eliška then correctly stated that there could only be one winner, and that if she hadn't killed Maximilian then, she would have had to kill him after killing Arthur. Arthur would laugh at the second half of Eliška's comment, stating that Eliška might be getting a bit too cocky for her chances at victory. Eliška would roll her eyes and state that Arthur had just as much of a chance as she did. This would surprise Arthur, causing him to let his guard down as he processed her words. Eliška used this as the perfect chance to run at Arthur and swing her sword through the air, slicing open Arthur's stomach. Arthur fell to his knees, holding his stomach, pretty much attempting to hold his intestines in his body. As Arthur fell to his knees, Eliška started cutting Arthur in non-fatal places, making his death slow and painful. As Arthur's screams and begs for death echoed through the arena, many country citizens from the participating countries tuned out of the games, already knowing who would win this year. As Arthur slowly continued to bleed out, he looked up at Alishka with slightly desperate, pleading eyes. He then asks Alishka to take care of his parents when she gets out of the arena. Alishka actually stopped cutting Arthur and nodded respectfully, stating that she would meet Arthur's parents and take care of them. She'd then stab Arthur one last time in his heart, sounding his cannon and marking the end of the first Euromerican Games. After the games, Alishka was evacuated from the arena while peacekeepers rushed in to collect the bodies of the dead tributes. As soon as she was back in the outside world, she immediately started receiving hate, as she had turned on her allies before the need had arisen. It was at this point that citizens in each member state would start giving the victors nicknames of their own that had to do with their most memorable trait or thing they did in the games, calling Alishka the traitor. In 3002, before the Second Euro-American Games, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Armenia all gave their Kurdish majority areas independence. Those Kurdish areas would soon join together to form a country known as Kurdistan. Kurdistan, Armenia, and Azerbaijan are the next Eastern European countries to sign up to join the EU, meaning they now also have to send in tributes into the Euro-American Games. Meanwhile, in the western side of Europe, Andorra also signs up to join the EU, meaning they also have to send in tributes now. Although new countries are signing up to join the EU, other countries were officially accepted into the EU. The two countries to be officially accepted into the EU this year being Turkey and Georgia. Finally, it was decided that since 46 countries would be participating this year, the tribute selection would go a little differently. Instead of everyone being picked and going into the same arena, there would be 15 automatic qualifying countries. The other 31 countries would compete in what would come to be known as the semi-finals, battling it out for 10 spots in the grand final. It was decided that France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the USA would automatically qualify for the grand final each year, as these regions were the largest financial contributors in their respective unions. The 10 remaining countries that ranked the highest the previous year would also be automatically qualified. This would mean that for the second Euro-American Games, France, 32nd, Germany, 5th, Italy, 39th, Spain, 11th, the United States of America, 10th, Czechia, winner, Belgium, 2nd, Canada, 3rd, Netherlands, 4th, Portugal, 6th, Luxembourg, 7th, Slovakia, 8th, Bosnia and Herzegovina, 9th, Scotland, 12th, and Mexico, 13th, were the automatically qualified countries this year. This year, due to the events of the previous year, no one trusted the tributes from Czechia, Canada, Portugal, or Slovakia. So, the tributes from these countries would end up forming their own alliance. All these tributes being automatic qualifiers due to their country's amazing performance during last year's games. This group would try to get all the automatic qualifiers into their alliance, but it wouldn't work out as no one trusted them, not even the other automatic qualifiers. It was decided just after the first Euro-American Games that each year the games would be hosted in the country of the previous victor. This would mean that the second Euro-American Games would be hosted by Czechia. A training center would be established in each country, close to a hotel to house the tributes in. Each country would also have an arena that they could customize to their liking, established within the country. This year's games were won by Jordi Vidal, age 20, from Andorra. The associate member state of the EU that was picked this year was Iceland. The possible tributes from Iceland were surprisingly excited for the games, seeing it as a chance to fight for their country. This year, the 4 new countries in the games would immediately cause problems during their respective reapings. Even though they all knew the importance of the games, they didn't understand why they had to participate immediately after attempting to join the EU. Lana, 23, from Kurdistan, would punch and kick peacekeepers as they dragged her to the reaping stage. She knew the importance of these games, but she also knew she wasn't going into the arena without a fight. Meanwhile, Ani, 19, from Armenia, and Ayla, 17, from Azerbaijan, both stayed stock still in the reaping enclosures in their respective countries, forcing peacekeepers to drag them to the stage. Both of the girls kicked and screamed all the way to the stage, embarrassing many other people present at the reapings. Finally, Jordi, 20, from Andorra, was reaped as a second option after the reaping of Marty, 16, from Andorra. After Marty was reaped, he stayed still in his enclosure, tricking peacekeepers into coming closer. Marty would then steal one of the peacekeepers' guns, shooting himself with it. This would cause the president of Andorra to pick from the bowl again, picking the name of Jordi. Jordi would walk to the stage without issue, but people could tell that he was already coming up with a plan for the semi-final. Meanwhile, a couple reapings of the automatically qualified tributes also went wrong. Alexander, 18, from France, Bram, 19, from the Netherlands, Jules, 19, from Belgium, and Leo, 20, from Luxembourg, would all be the largest, strongest tributes reaped this year, all of them using this to their advantage, attempting to fight the peacekeepers in their countries. The peacekeepers would quickly and easily deal with these rebels, but this would show their lack of fear in the face of death. Meanwhile, Sophie, 18, from the USA, and Zara, 19, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, were visibly drunk while on the stage. Although the legal drinking age in America was 21, Sophie had snuck some of her mother's wine before the reapings. Meanwhile, the legal drinking age in Bosnia was 18, so Zara was allowed to drink, but she still was so drunk she didn't conduct herself well on the stage at all, starting to strip nude, needing 5 peacekeepers to stop her. Finally, Damek, 15, from Czechia, Charlotte, 19, from Canada, and Diego, 19, from Mexico, all managed to steal guns from peacekeepers in their countries and shoot 1 or 2 peacekeepers dead before being subdued and handcuffed. These tributes tried to end the games, but failed miserably, still ending up going into the games and their respective countries. When the 31 semifinalists arrived in Czechia, they were escorted into a waiting room where they could talk to each other and make plans for the semifinals. The semifinals is where some more prevalent alliances in future years would form. Ani and Ayla would ally with Caroline, 18, from Georgia, forming the Caucasian Alliance. Boris, 16, from Turkey, Asan, 18, from Greece, and Andreas, 17, from Cyprus, would bring back the Greco-Turkish alliance this year. Finally, Oscar, 24, from Estonia, Camille, 19, from Lithuania, and Elise, 25, from Latvia, would form the Baltic Alliance. The Baltic Alliance would also come to be known for a love triangle between the trio this year. Although Lana would try to join the Caucasian Alliance, she would... oh my gosh. Stop. Although Lana would try to join the Caucasian Alliance, she would be denied at first, as her home country wasn't located in the Caucasus Mountains. Lana then correctly stated that by their logic, Ani shouldn't be in the alliance, as the mountains only go through Georgia and Azerbaijan. This actually impressed the alliance, causing them to let Lana join the alliance. Meanwhile, Geordie wandered around, wondering where the Portuguese and Spanish tributes were. Eventually, he would stumble across Anna, 19, from Iceland. Anna would give Geordie a look that told Geordie that Anna noticed his confusion. Anna then spoke, saying that if Geordie was looking for the Portuguese and Spanish tributes, they had been automatically qualified for the grand final. Anna then suggested that she and Geordie could help each other out until Geordie made it to training, to which Geordie would agree enthusiastically. A few moments after alliances were established, they would immediately be tested, as only 10 tributes from the semifinals could make it to the grand final. Eventually, peacekeepers would come into the waiting room, saying that they would be blindfolding the tributes and escorting them to the semifinal arena. This would surprise many tributes and scare a few, as some tributes were scared of the dark. Alban, 12, from Albania, even screamed and yelled that he didn't want the peacekeepers to put him back in the dark, in reference to how dark it was on the plane he had taken to get to Czechia. The peacekeepers paid no mind to the protests, as they blindfolded all of the tributes, beginning to take them to the semifinal arena. The peacekeepers would then leave the semifinal arena, getting onto intercoms in the arena, stating that the tributes must fight until only 10 tributes remained. If anyone kills anyone else after the ending of the semifinal is announced, that tribute would also be killed. The peacekeepers then stated that the tributes could take off their blindfolds. Ani, Isla, Caroline, and Lana all took off their blindfolds, looking around to see that they were all right next to each other. The Caucasian Alliance would use this chance to talk about their strategy for the semifinals. Meanwhile, Geordie and Anna took off their blindfolds, noticing they were both across the weapon pile from each other. As they noticed this, Anna let a tear fall from her eye, rolling down her cheek. Geordie gave Anna a reassuring nod, but he knew Anna was in a dangerous spot. When the gong sounded, tributes ran into the weapon pile, all while Lana and Isla froze in shock along with Geordie. The trio of tributes froze as their allies and many other tributes ran directly at the weapon pile. As Anna grabbed a sword, she'd only use it to kill Alban, before running over to Geordie, tossing him a knife before turning to protect him. Meanwhile, Ani and Caroline grabbed weapons for them and their allies before running back over to Isla and Lana. The group then armed themselves, and Isla and Lana had a strange boost of confidence, running into the weapon pile with Ani and Caroline, starting to fight the remaining tributes in the weapon pile. When the semifinals ended, 21 tributes had lost their lives. This would qualify Andorra, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Cyprus, Estonia, Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, and Iceland. This would mean that the 25 tributes in the grand final would be from Andorra, male, Armenia, female, Azerbaijan, female, Belgium, male, Bosnia and Herzegovina, female, Canada, female, Cyprus, male, Czechia, male, Estonia, male, France, male, Georgia, female, Germany, male, Iceland, female, Italy, male, Kurdistan, female, Latvia, female, Lithuania, female, Luxembourg, male, Mexico, male, Netherlands, male, Portugal, female, Scotland, male, Slovakia, female, Spain, female, and the United States of America, female. In Czechia, a luxurious hotel would be rented out to hold all the tributes. Each room could hold 2 tributes with 2 separate beds. Each tribute would be sorted into a room based on gender and would be done in alphabetical order of country. Jordi would end up rooming with Gunther, 24, from Germany. Meanwhile, Ani would end up rooming with Isla, and finally, Lana would end up rooming with Alejandra, 29, from Spain. Jordi and Lana wouldn't get along very well with their roommates, both Gunther and Alejandra being tributes from automatically qualified nations and supporting the games. Gunther even told Jordi that he had fun watching the previous year's games, scaring Jordi and causing Jordi to remain silent for the rest of the night. The next day, it was time for training. More alliances were also formed. Leo, Bram, and Jules forming the Benelux Alliance, not including Alexander or Gunther this year, marking the official end of the Franco-German alliance. Instead, Alexander would end up joining Alejandra in an Iberian alliance. As they chatted, Jordi and Anna approached the group. As the duo noticed Jordi and Anna, the duo looked genuinely surprised that the tribute from an associate member state had made it to the grand final, along with the tribute from Andorra. Jordi and Anna would ask Alexander and Alejandro if they could join the Iberian Alliance. The duo would think for a moment before laughing, stating that Anna isn't even from an Iberian country. This would cause Jordi to correctly state that France wasn't a part of the Iberian Peninsula either. Instead of impressing the Iberian Alliance with his words, though, Alexander grabbed Jordi by the throat, stating that Jordi better either drop Anna or be targeted first in the arena. Jordi would look over at Anna and for a moment before glaring at Alexander. Jordi would then tell Alexander and Alejandra that he would rather die than betray his friend. He'd then walk back over to Anna, and the pair walked away from the Iberian Alliance. Alexander looking beyond pissed off. Alexander stating that he'd kill that from Andorra. It's important to note that Jordi wasn't gay, and thus the use of this derogatory term by Alexander was not even realistic, also being quite rude. Instead, Jordi and Anna had a love story of their own within the games, and even during training, as many other tributes observed the pair holding hands. Meanwhile, the Caucasian Alliance would train at the spear station, throwing spears at targets and whatnot. To the surprise of the rest of the members of the Alliance, Lana actually ended up being the best at the spear station. Lana would state that she went spearfishing with her dad every now and then to relieve stress. This would confuse Ani, Isla, and Caroline, but they wouldn't question any further. As training continued, Sarah, 26, from Slovakia, and Angus, 25, from Scotland, would form a very unlikely friendship. Although there wasn't a lot of trust, the pair would perform music during training, as both of them were good at singing and playing instruments. Meanwhile, a very unlikely alliance between Charlotte, Damek, Maria, 23, from Portugal, and Sarah would be formed. The group had one very important thing in common. None of the other tributes trusted them after the events of last year. Even though they tried to get the other automatically qualified nations in their alliance, especially Matteo, 20, from Italy, it would ultimately fail as no one trusted them. After training, the tributes went back to their rooms for the night before they were taken to the arena. Gunther actually let Jordy invite Anna over to talk about arena strategy. As Jordy and Anna talked, they were surprised when Gunther interjected every now and then, giving valuable advice to the pair. The night would end with Jordy and Anna inviting Gunther to their very unconventional alliance, to which Gunther would gratefully accept. Meanwhile, Lana, Ani, Isla, and Caroline would meet up in Ani and Isla's room, talking strategy for the arena the next day. As they talked, they heard a knock on the door. As they answered the door, they find Matteo outside the door. The girls looked between each other for a moment before Matteo pushed into their room. What happened next hasn't been seen to this day, but one can assume what happened if they were there and heard the girls' horrifying screams for help. The next day, it was time for the games. The tributes would be blindfolded again and escorted to the arena for the grand final. Ani, Isla, Lana, and Caroline looked downcast today, assumed to be due to what Matteo had done to them the night prior. Scientists and psychologists would say that maybe Matteo did this on purpose in order to get the girls off of their game and make them easy kills. As the blindfolds were taken off, the tributes looked around the arena. This time, the arena was a massive skyscraper with many floors and many rooms, making for lots of hiding places. As the countdown started, Jordy noticed that Anna was closer to him than she was in the semifinals, making both of them feel a lot better. Meanwhile, Ani, Isla, Caroline, and Lana stared forward blankly. Just then, Lana blurted out what Matteo had done to them last night. The cameras glitched at this moment, causing the people at home to still not know what happened to them. But the Capitolites watching live and the other tributes in the arena would know the truth, causing all the tributes to look at Matteo with disgust and disdain. As the gong sounded, everyone except for Ani, Isla, Caroline, and Lana ran into the cornucopia, grabbing weapons. Matteo surprisingly managed to dodge multiple attempts on his life on his way to the cornucopia. He then grabbed a sword, dodging more attacks on his way over to the Caucasian Alliance. As he arrived, he stabbed Ani in the heart, sounding her cannon immediately. This would cause Isla, Caroline, and Lana to scream and start running away. Just then, Matteo swiped his sword at Caroline, cutting her leg open. Caroline would fall to the ground, and Matteo would then straddle Caroline's hips, stabbing her multiple times in the chest, stomach, and head. As Isla and Lana ran away from Matteo, Isla got caught in the middle of another attempt on Matteo's life. Jordy had grabbed a throwing knife and was aiming for Matteo, but as he threw his knife, Isla ran in front of it, not having noticed that Jordy had thrown a knife. The knife would hit Isla in the head, sounding her cannon immediately. Finally, Lana noticed all her allies had died and that she was all alone. As Mateo cornered Lana, Lana grabbed a brick up off the ground, bashing her own head in with the brick, sounding her cannon after a few minutes of the bloody display. After the deaths of Isla, Ani, Lana, and Caroline, someone finally succeeded in killing Mateo. Anna had grabbed a sword and was sneaking up on Mateo as he was distracted with Lana. After the death of Lana, her cannon masked Anna's footsteps. Anna used this to her advantage, running up behind Mateo, stabbing him in the back of his head. As Mateo's body fell to the ground, Anna said good riddance before running away from the cornucopia with Jordy and Gunther. As Anna, Jordy, and Gunther arrived at an elevator, more cannons went off as Andreas and Zara fell victim to the Baltic and Benelux alliances. These two alliances formed a temporary truce within the training center, making a big impression on the young viewers of each participating country. Jordy would call the elevator while Anna and Gunther guarded him and the elevator doors in order to protect Jordy and the elevator. As the elevator arrived, the ding alerted Diego and Sophie, who were nearby at the time. As Diego and Sophie spotted the trio, Gunther pushed Anna and Jordy into the elevator, pressing the button for the top floor. As the elevator doors closed, Anna and Jordy watched in horror as Gunther began fighting Sophie and Diego. As the elevator went up, they heard a cannon. Assuming the cannon belonged to Gunther, Anna fell to her knees and cried, causing Jordy to kneel next to her, hugging her tight and rubbing her back. As the elevator got further and further up, Anna and Jordy heard a thud on the elevator roof above them. The pair looked at each other before Angus broke into the elevator from the roof of it. Anna screamed as Jordy prepared to defend her, taking out his throwing knives, holding them like daggers. As Angus ran at the pair, Jordy prepared his knives, moving Anna behind him. As Angus got close enough, Jordy swung first, hitting Angus directly in the heart with his knife, sounding his cannon immediately. Meanwhile, the Trustless Alliance was facing problems. As Charlotte, Damek, Maria, and Sarah made it to the elevators, they noticed that the tributes from the Baltic Alliance and the Benelux Alliance were right behind the group. As Charlotte pressed the button to call the elevator repeatedly, Damek, Maria, and Sarah turned to the other two alliances, ready to defend themselves. As Jules, Oscar, Elise, Camille, Leo, and Bram made it to the Trustless group, Damek attacked first. Damek tackled Jules to the ground, stabbing him repeatedly before being ripped off of Jules' barely conscious body by Leo, getting stabbed in the heart. Meanwhile, the Baltic Alliance teamed up against Maria. The trio tackled Maria to the ground, stabbing her repeatedly, sounding her cannon only moments after Damek's cannon sounded. As Jules' cannon sounded, the group realized there were only two more members of the Trustless Alliance, Charlotte and Sarah. The remaining members of the Benelux Alliance would then team up on Charlotte, while the Baltic Alliance members would team up on Sarah. As Leo and Bram got to Charlotte, the pair tackled Charlotte to the ground, her head being slammed against the wall to add insult to injury. As if her head being bashed against the wall didn't kill her, what happened next did, as Bram stabbed Charlotte in the heart, sounding her cannon. Meanwhile, when Oscar, Elise, and Camille arrived at Sarah's location, they tackled Sarah to the ground. As Elise stabbed Sarah repeatedly in non-fatal locations, making Sarah suffer, the groups didn't know that the Iberian duo was nearby, just after having killed Diego and Sophie. As Sarah's cannon sounded, Alexander and Alejandra attacked. While the sound of the cannon masked their footsteps, Alexander stabbed Leo in the neck, while Alejandro stabbed Oscar in the heart. As their cannons masked Alexander and Alejandra's footsteps, they struck again. Alexander ran at Elise, tackling her to the ground and stabbing her in the heart repeatedly. Meanwhile, Alejandra tackled Camille to the ground and stabbed her in the brain. This would leave the top 5 tributes in the arena: Jordi from Andorra, Alexander from France, Anna from Iceland, Bram from the Netherlands, and Alejandra from Spain. Although Alexander and Alejandra were unaware that Jordi and Anna were still alive. The pair from Iberia found it very easy to kill the boy from Benelux, as he was solo at this point. It was at this point that Alejandra and Alexander thought they were the final 2. Although no announcement was made, the pair began fighting. Both tributes did amazingly in this fight, both being from the automatically qualified countries of France and Spain. Germany, Italy, France, Spain, and the USA would come to be known as a career alliance of sorts in later games, but for now the countries' tributes would only ally with tributes that live near them geographically, or tributes they got along with. As the fight continued, Jordi and Anna watched from the grates of a ventilation shaft above the fight. Eventually, Jordi and Anna would watch Alejandra overpower Alexander, putting her hands up in victory, claiming she had become the victor. After a few moments without a victory announcement, Alejandra started to count the tributes on her fingers. Before she could realize Jordi and Anna were still alive, they got the drop on her, literally. As Jordi and Anna came crashing down on top of Alejandra, Alejandra let out a guttural scream of fear. As Jordi fell, he threw a knife into Alejandra's head, sounding her cannon as the pair hit the ground. Just then, an announcement was made that Jordi and Anna were the final 2 tributes in the second Euromerican Games. As the pair heard this, they looked at each other. Jordi began to tear up, claiming that he couldn't kill Anna. Anna would smile and nod in understanding, stating that she couldn't kill Jordi either. Just then, Anna kissed Jordi, stealing one of his throwing knives from his jacket. Anna would then stab herself in the stomach, causing her to fall to her knees. As Anna fell, Jordi screamed and knelt down beside her, holding her body in his arms. He begged Anna to stay with him, but Anna was already too far gone, stating that if neither of them could kill each other, one of them had to die in order for the other to get out. As Anna's life faded from her eyes, Jordi burst into tears, cradling her body in his arms. As Jordi was announced as the victor of the second Euromerican Games, he let out a guttural scream of anguish and pain. After the games, Jordi was escorted out of the arena as the dead bodies were removed from the arena. When Jordi was back in the outside world, he fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. He wouldn't try to find love after the games, much like Eliska hadn't. But both of these victors felt as if they had betrayed the people they loved. Alishka had betrayed her allies, and Jordy had killed the girl he had fallen for in the games. Jordy would gain the nickname The Lover through his actions in the games. In the year 3003, before the third Euromerican Games, 4 new countries were introduced into the games. These 4 countries joined the American Union: the Bahamas, Costa Rica, Jamaica, and Panama. These countries would come to be known as the smartest tributes in future renditions of the American alliance. This year's games were won by Liam Martin, aged 19, from Canada. It had 50 participants, with Iceland being swapped out for Norway, the last associate member to debut. It was also after this year that it was decided that they would go in alphabetical order for the 3 associate member states when swapping them out, meaning Iceland would be the associate member state participating next year. At the time of his reaping, Liam was very poor. Not quite homeless, but very poor nonetheless. Liam was present at his reaping ceremony, but the same couldn't be said for the tributes reaped from Kurdistan, the Bahamas, or Panama. Hannah, 20, from Kurdistan, Euralia, 24, from the Bahamas, and Ian, 17, from Panama, had to be searched for 5 days after their respective reapings. Euralia would be found hidden in her house. Ian would be found hiding somewhere near the Panama Canal, and most surprisingly, Hannah would be found somewhere in the forests of southern Russia. Canada was one of the automatically qualified countries, even though they finished in 13th place last year. They could thank Spain, France, and the United States for that, as this trio were already automatically qualified, and so Canada and Mexico qualified to the finals for the 2nd year in a row, with Mexico getting in on a technicality again, since they were 13th place in the first games and 11th place in the second. The 15 automatically qualified tributes sat in a rec room, waiting to have the 10 semifinalists who qualified for the grand final revealed to them. The 15 automatically qualified tributes included tributes from France, 4th, Spain, 3rd, Germany, 18th, Italy, 21st, USA, 12th, Andorra, 1st, Netherlands, 5th, Lithuania, 6th, Latvia, 7th, Estonia, 8th, Luxembourg, 9th, Slovakia, 10th, Mexico, 11th, Canada, 13th, and Belgium, 14th. This is not only the 2nd time in a row Canada and Mexico automatically qualified for the grand final, this is also the 2nd time in a row that all 3 of the original American Union were automatic qualifiers. As Connor, 16, from the USA, Miguel, 18, from Mexico, and Liam waited in the waiting room, they talked about if they thought the tributes from the Bahamas, Costa Rica, Jamaica, and Panama would make it through to the grand final. The trio of boys didn't do this in a joking way, rather just genuinely worried if their American comrades would make it through the semifinals. Eventually, the tributes who survived the semifinals filtered into the waiting room in alphabetical order of their country. Euralia was the first tribute to walk in, immediately walking over to Connor, Miguel, and Liam. Daniela, 20, from Costa Rica, followed soon after, also walking over to the other members of the American Alliance. Georgia, 18, from Cyprus, Freya, 17, from Denmark, Aurora, 16, from Finland, and Chloe, 27, from Greece, followed suit, followed by Alvida, 18, from Jamaica, who walks right over to the American alliance, joined by Ian. Lastly, Alfred, 18, from Sweden, and Ahmet, 15, from Turkey, walked into the waiting room, joining their allies. This year saw the debut of the Nordic Alliance, formed by Freya, Aurora, and Alfred. Elle, 19, from Norway, would have also joined the alliance if she had made it through the semifinals, but it wasn't meant to be. Meanwhile, the tributes from the countries previously in the Trustless Alliance would be in regular alliances this year. Liam was invited into the American Alliance relatively quickly, unlike the Canadian tribute last year. This meant that the tributes in the grand final were Julia, 15, from Andorra, Iralia, Luis, 20, from Belgium, Liam, Daniela, Georgia, Freya, Eva, 26, from Estonia, Aurora, Juliet, 23, from France, Friedrich, 24, from Germany, Chloe, Chiara, 19, from Italy, Alvida, Roberts, 19, from Latvia, Bernius, 18, from Lithuania, Alice, 19, from Luxembourg, Miguel, Art, 14, from the Netherlands, Ian, Nina, 15, from Slovakia, Camila, 17, from Spain, Alfred, Ahmet, and Connor. Most of these tributes are in alliances, with only Friedrich, Chiara, and Nina going it solo. During training, Liam stays close to Auralia, Daniela, Alvida, Miguel, Ian, and Connor. The American group this year was one of the largest and most dangerous alliances out there this year. There were talks in this alliance about going for Juliet, Friedrich, Chiara, and Camila first. This group realized how the automatic qualifying nations work every year and wanted less competition within the top 10. Meanwhile, Jordy had noticed how suspicious both Julia's allies were acting. In this moment, Jordy noticed something that none of the other tributes or mentors would notice until the next year. The 5 countries that were the highest financial contributors in their respective unions, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, and the United States of America, were forming a side alliance, which would come to be known as the Career Alliance in future years, and demolish trust in the tributes from all of these countries. Jordy would then tell Julia to maybe consider joining a different alliance with the numbers to protect her. Julia would consider this for a moment before ultimately agreeing. During the last hour of training, Julia would approach the American alliance, asking to join. She'd then state how she knew she wasn't American, but she didn't trust Juliet or Camila at all. The American alliance would think about this for a moment before Connor spoke up. Connor agreed to let Julia join the alliance, to the surprise of the other alliance members. Julia would jump up and down in excitement and hug Connor tight, thanking him repeatedly. Connor would hide a smirk before hugging Julia back just as tightly. Later that night, when the tributes were allowed to go between each other's rooms, Connor went to the room shared between Juliet and Camila. Joining him were also Friedrich and Chiara, who were both also interested in talking about how they would meet up in the arena. It was at this point that Connor told Juliet and Camila that what happened with Julia in training. This would cause Friedrich and Chiara to ask Juliet and Camilla if they had made a backup alliance obvious, to which the girls replied that they hadn't done anything of the sort. Connor stepped in and stated that Julia had still joined the American alliance, which had him in it. So either way, Julia was in an alliance that would eventually kill her, causing Juliet, Camilla, Friedrich, and Chiara to laugh and give Connor a high five. Camilla then hugged Connor and complimented him on his intelligence. The next day contained more conversation between tributes about plans in the arena. Many citizens tuned out of the games at this section, not knowing a new addition to the games this year that would happen later that night. That night, tributes were escorted out of their respective rooms, being taken to a stage. It was at this point that the president of Andorra came onto the stage and announced a new addition to the games, the interviews. This would surprise many of the tributes, but it didn't really change their arena plans. As the interviews went on, some notable interviews were those of Alvida, who performed a reggae song from her home country of Jamaica, Miguel, who had immediate banter and appreciation from the interviewer, Camila, who admitted feelings for Connor, and Connor's interview where he called Ian onto the stage and performed a song from many years ago by Austin Mahone and Pitbull. Meanwhile, Liam's interview was also very notable, especially because of his charm and the fact that many girls watching the games developed crushes on him and Connor. He was very polite and answered the questions to the best of his ability until he was asked if he had anyone special waiting for him at home. Liam would answer this question by stating that he had found out his girlfriend of 5 years had been cheating on him all this time, the day before the reapings, and so he didn't have anyone special waiting for him anywhere. This would cause the interviewer to state that it seemed like the girls in Andorra liked him, and that they would most likely be awaiting Liam's victory. This would make Liam smile and look out into the crowd, winking at a girl he found especially attractive, causing the girl to scream excitedly and faint. The girl would eventually be revealed as Martina, the youngest daughter of the president of Andorra. She was tall, probably taller than Liam, and had tan skin and brunette hair, sort of revealing Liam's type as he had winked at her specifically. Later that night, after the interviews, Liam noticed Connor sneaking off and decided to follow him when he left. As Connor entered Julia and Camilla's room with Chiara and Friedrich, Liam ran to the door and pressed his ear against it, listening in on what was being said. When he heard Connor talking about his secret alliance with Juliet, Camilla, Friedrich, and Chiara, Liam gasped and ran back to Ian and his shared room. When Ian and the others saw Liam out of breath, they began to worry about him. Ian asked him where he had gone, to which Liam replied by asking if any of the others thought Connor was acting weird, to which Julia agreed and stated that she had definitely noticed it. The other tributes hadn't noticed, all being confused by why he had asked. Liam then states that Connor was a traitor, telling the others that he had allied with Juliet, Camilla, Friedrich, and Chiara behind their backs. Julia would gasp at this, chatting that she knew Julia and Camilla were suspicious. This caused Jordy to chuckle as he watched the games from the screen at his house. Although he had told although he had told Julia the other Iberian girls weren't trustworthy, he wasn't angry that she was taking the credit. For reasons unknown to many other citizens of the EU and the AU. Euralia, Daniela, Alvida, Miguel, and Ian all looked genuinely surprised by this revelation. However, Ian looked especially lost, as he had developed a close friendship with Connor, especially directly before and after the interviews. Meanwhile, Alvida clinged to Miguel out of fear for her life. Her earlier confident persona completely gone now, leaving a clingy, fearful mess. Liam then starts talking about a plan of his own, seemingly calming many of his allies down. After finding out that Connor was betraying the alliance, Liam had taken over the leadership position, being well liked amongst most of his allies. The next day, the tributes were blindfolded and taken to the arena by peacekeepers. As they arrived, the peacekeepers left. The tributes were told they would take their blindfolds off. Once they did, the tributes saw they were surrounded by a deep forest on all sides. Liam looked around at all his allies, nodding reassuringly to them. When the gong sounded, Miguel and Liam were surprisingly the first to act, running to the weapon pile as many other tributes were distracted by the beauty of the arena. The only people to join Miguel and Liam at the weapon pile were Connor and Friedrich. As Miguel and Friedrich fought over a sword in the weapon pile, Connor picked up a spear and immediately threw it towards Liam, but he ducked under the spear, causing it to fly straight into Friedrich's head, sounding as cannon. Miguel then picked up the sword and ran at Connor, decapitating Connor with it. As Camila witnessed Connor's death, she ran into the weapon pile, grabbing a throwing knife and throwing it at Miguel. Miguel skillfully ducked under the knife, causing it to impale Juliet. As Juliet's body fell, Camila screamed and tried to run away, but Liam caught up to her fast, tackling her to the ground and pinning her there. Ian then ran into the weapon pile, grabbing a trident and running over to Liam and Camila, stabbing Camila in the heart before stating he was happy to reunite the traitorous lovers in the afterlife. As the group continued fighting, Julia gets tackled to the ground by Kiara. As Kiara choked Julia out on the ground, she shouted that Julia and her stupid allies killed her allies. Julia cried as she was being choked, causing Jordy to yell at his screen, begging for one of Julia's American allies to notice this. Just then, Miguel ran at Kiara, tackling her off of Julia. As Julia took a deep breath in, Ian helped her up and instructed her to go over to Liam, who will protect her until the bloodbath concludes. As Julia ran to Liam, Kiara somehow managed to get the upper hand on Miguel, disarming him and using his own sword to stab him in the heart. As Kiara pushed Miguel's body off of herself, Alvida and Ian screamed in anguish. Alvida would grab a throwing knife while Ian ran at Kiara with his trident. A skillful battle ensued between Ian and Kiara, while Alvida tried to aim at Kiara with her throwing knife. As the knife left Alvida's hands, Kiara got the upper hand against Ian, stabbing him in the head with the sword. Just as Kiara smirked victoriously, Alvida's knife hit Kiara in the eye, causing her to scream out in pain. Alvida then throws another knife at Kiara, hitting her in the heart, finally sounding Kiara's cannon. As the other tributes evacuated the weapon pile, the American alliance stayed posted up, guarding the weapon pile. As Alvida reunited with the other members of the American alliance, she fell to her knees and began to cry. Liam then knelt down next to Alvida and hugged her tight, letting Alvida cry on his shoulder. Julia, Iralia, Liam, Daniela, and Alvida would mourn their losses for a few more minutes. A few minutes of tears and sadness was all they could afford in the arena. As the group began to calm down, Liam noticed they still had more tributes alive in their alliance than all the other alliances in the arena. He would tell the others this fact, stating that the Nordic Alliance, the Baltic Alliance, and the Benelux Alliance were the only alliances left and one solo tribute. He then stated that the alliances he had mentioned only had 3 tributes in them, while their own alliance still had 5. This would cause the girls to look between each other with a little more faith in their survival. As Liam starts planning how they're going to win, Julia, Iralia, Daniela, and Alvida witness peacekeepers coming into the arena to take the dead bodies out of the arena. As the peacekeepers took Miguel and Ian's bodies out of the arena, Alvida glared at them before turning back to the others, stating she was gonna make the other tributes in this arena pay. Julia, Iralia, Daniela, and Liam all tried to tell Alvida that the other tributes aren't who killed Miguel, but Alvida's mind was already made up. As the group continued talking, the sun began to set. This would notably be the first Euromerican games to last until sundown. As tributes started settling in for sleep, the American alliance stayed up, planning what they could do that night. Liam thought for a moment before stating that he saw the direction the Nordic alliance fled in. He then stated that they could go for the Nordic alliance while they were asleep. Although the girls were apprehensive about the idea at first, they eventually agreed when Liam stated that they had to kill someone if they wanted any chance of making it to the final. Just then, someone else found them. It was the solo tribute, Nina. As Nina tried to sneak to the weapon pile, Alvida took out a throwing knife and threw it directly at Nina's head, sounding her cannon almost immediately. After killing Nina, Alvida then stated that she had seen where the Greco-Turkish alliance had fled to. She then stood up and started walking in the direction she saw the Greco-Turkish alliance go in. The others would get up and follow her, wanting to protect her just in case something went wrong. As they walked, the group whispered about their plans once they made it to the camp of the Greco-Turkish alliance. As the games ran later and later, many citizens of the EU and the AU tuned out for the night. 2 of the only people to stay up later watching the games were Alishka and Jordy. The pair stayed up late watching the games in Jordy's house, since the tribute from Czechia didn't even make it past the semifinals. Alishka had been rooting for Julia since the beginning of the finals. As the American group arrived at the Greco-Turkish group's camp, they noticed all of them were fast asleep. The trio was cuddling and smiling, clearly smitten for each other. Julia and Liam couldn't help but coo at the cuteness of the group. Meanwhile, Alvida started sneaking up to the Greco-Turkish alliance. When Alvida got closer, she takes out one of her throwing knives before throwing it directly at Ahmet. The knife would end up hitting Ahmet in the arm, causing him to wake up and scream out in pain. This would alert Georgia and Chloe, causing them to wake up and grab makeshift weapons they had made out of tree branches. The American group prepared to fight. Liam stepped out in front of Julia in a protective manner. Just then, Georgia threw her branch directly at Alvida's head, sounding her cannon almost immediately. As Ahmet stood up to grab his branch, Liam immediately threw his spear at Ahmet, while Aurelia threw one of Alvida's remaining throwing knives at Georgia. Both weapons hit their intended targets, sounding Ahmet and Georgia's cannons simultaneously. As Chloe prepared to fight on her own, both her and the American group were surprised when the Baltic Alliance came rushing at the American Alliance through the bushes. Eva tackled Aurelia to the ground, stabbing her in the heart, whilst Roberts and Bernius tackled Chloe to the ground and stabbed her. As this occurred, Julia snapped, running at Eva and tackling her to the ground, stabbing her repeatedly in the head until her cannon sounded. Just then, Bernius tackled Julia off of Eva and stabbed her in the heart, sounding her cannon as well. This caused the other living members of the American Alliance to scream and tackle Bernius to the ground. The group then teamed up to kill Bernius together. Just then, Roberts tackled Liam off of Bernius. As the pair of boys put up good fights, both dealing devastating blows to each other. As the other members of the American Alliance thought about intervening, Liam got the upper hand, grabbing his spear and turning over so he was pinning Roberts down, before stabbing Roberts repeatedly in the neck, heart, and head, not stopping as Roberts' cannon sounded. Instead, Daniela had to pull Liam off of Roberts. The pair looked at each other as the only two surviving members of the American Alliance. They then looked at the dead bodies of Julia, Aurelia, and Alvida, and bowed respectively to their fallen comrades. As they did this, cannons were heard in the distance as a fight between the Nordic and Benelux alliances began. As the cannons from the fight stopped, Marty, the president of Andorra, got onto the intercoms of the arena and stated that Liam from Canada, Daniela from Costa Rica, and Alfred from Sweden were the top 3 tributes left in the games. Immediately after Marty got off of the intercoms, Liam and Daniela heard something in the distance. Just then, a tree nearby to them collapses, causing the pair to jump and begin running to the weapon pile. As they ran, trees collapsed right behind them, slowly gaining ground on the pair. The pair would continue to run, fearing for their lives. Just then, Daniela tripped and collapsed. Liam would turn around and see her, causing him to shout for her to get up and join him. Daniela would let a tear roll down her cheek before telling Liam to win for her before a tree crushes her, sounding her cannon. As Daniela's cannon sounds, the trees stop collapsing. This would confuse Liam, and he'd look around before being tackled by Alfred, causing Liam's spear to fly out of his grip. Liam and Alfred would fight hand to hand, fighting for any scrap of high ground, both boys trying to get a leg up on their competition. Both boys would fight well, but one of them would eventually need to run out of stamina. Just then, Alfred collapses, falling off of Liam, officially exhausted. Alfred would look up at Liam, begging for mercy. Liam would shake his head at the begging, stating that Alfred never showed him mercy, so he wasn't going to show Alfred mercy. He then gripped the sides of Alfred's head and snapped his neck, making Liam the victor of the 3rd Euromerican Games. After the games, Liam was escorted out of the arena while peacekeepers dealt with the dead bodies of Daniela and Alfred. As soon as he was back in the outside world, ghosts from Andorra crowded around him. Although peacekeepers tried to stop the ghosts from crowding him, Liam saw Martina and immediately made his way through the crowd to her. As Liam made it over to Martina, Liam pulled Martina into a kiss, kissing Martina on live TV. This would make many female viewers jealous, but Martina and Liam would be happy. A few months after Liam's victory, he would marry Martina. Lots of people attended the wedding, including Alishka and Jordi, who had agreed to attend the wedding as each other's date, even though they wouldn't officially date. The pair just didn't want to make each other feel left out. Liam and Martina would end up moving into a nice and modest little apartment together. The pair would end up having 5 kids together, 2 boys and 3 girls. Liam and Martina would love each of the kids equally, being thankful just to be together at this point. Since Liam had won the 3rd Euromerican Games, the 4th Euromerican Games would be hosted by Canada. After the interviews were highly loved by many viewers of the games, Canada and most other countries in the EU and the AU would establish interview stages nearby to the training gyms and tribute accommodation hotels in order to hold the interviews in each country that would possibly host. When it came to how Liam was known after his victory, he would be referred to as the Vengeful Leader. Liam, the Vengeful Leader Martin, would join the ranks of Alishka, the traitor Adamczyk, and Jordi, the Lover Vidal. So yeah, guys, that was the end of the first episode of the Euromerican Games. Tomorrow night, I will be recording the second episode and posting that, along with this. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is more of just like a, I don't know, this is more of just a sort of, kind of, like, experiment for me, I guess you could say. But, I still enjoyed writing it, and I'll definitely be continuing to write it after the second episode, because I already have plans for future episodes and future countries that I can involve in the future episodes, and so on and so forth. So, there is that. Also, alongside, stuff that happened in this video, and it will be mentioned in the next video, alongside the stuff that happened in this video, France, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands are trying to form the European Federation. They're trying to federalize America, or Europe, making it one strong country, one strong state. But when that does actually officially happen, during, I believe, the 4th or 5th Euromerican Games, if I remember correctly, those 5 countries still send their own tributes. It's just now Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands become automatically qualified tributes every year, because the European Federation that they had just made with France and Germany is the highest financial contributor in all of Europe, in all of the American Union. But yeah, anyways, so I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode, as I stated already. If you did, then be sure to slap that like button, and as always, stay awesome. Goodbye, guys.